I want to bring to the stage Miss Nicole Stewart from Liberia, West Africa.
The day was July 2nd, 1990. We were familiar by this time with the scarcity of food and the few items or few ingredients that we had left to cook on a coal pot outside. We were familiar with the absence of water. We were familiar with the absence of just about everything that embodied freedom. My siblings and I, and my mother, we barely spoke. The silence said it all. On the morning of July 2nd, we sort of would console each other and just huddle together and hope that everything would be okay during the day. At midday, my father, who had given us a few days earlier a walkie-talkie, would call on the walkie-talkie at 12 every day. There was no way to charge it, so he said, turn it on at 12, I'll call and check in, and then I will check in again the next day. So that day, July 2nd, was his birthday. We were excited to hear from him and to know if he was okay. 12 midday came. We spoke to my father. Hello, how are you? Happy birthday, Dad. We hope that you're having a great day. How could he have a great day? No one could go anywhere. No one could really do anything. That day, though, he promised that he would try to get us out of Liberia as soon as possible. He had promised before, so it wasn't a guarantee. We went about our day in the silence that was familiar. The one thing, though, that was not familiar was the sound of gunshots being fired day after day, night after night. Who had gotten hit? Did we know them? We lived with that paralyzing fear of the unknown and of the atrocities happening beyond our front door. At night, I remember wondering where I'd hide in case our house was raided. The bathtub seemed to be the perfect spot, right? Nobody would find you there. So, at 4 a.m. on July 3rd, when there was a banging on the door, and it was persistent, never stopping. I died 1,000 times over. There was sweat rolling down my forehead. My mouth dried out immediately, and I felt like I had a million cotton balls in my mouth, ramming down my throat. Would tonight be the night that I would be raped, my sister, my mother, my brothers would be killed? I don't think anyone moved for a long time. Finally, we all ended up in the living room staring at the front door. Liberia, you see, was founded by freed slaves from the U.S. and with the assistance of the American Colonization Society. It was one of the first African country. It was the first African country to gain its independence on July 6, 1947. Liberia means land of freedom. What had happened to our freedom? What had happened to the Liberia that we so loved and knew? Our motto is the love of liberty brought us here. Liberty. It didn't exist anymore. Oneness of conscience, peace, security was gone. The knock continued. My older brother dared to open the door. When he opened the door, on the other side stood my father, and on either side of him, 2 Liberian soldiers wielding machine guns. We were confused. We didn't know what was happening. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, he spoke. Grab whatever you can, we're leaving right now. I couldn't move. I remember walking to my room, but I don't remember what happened after that because I must have been in there for a while. And he followed, unpacking my bag and telling me that you can't take all this stuff. You can take a change of clothes, but you can't take anything else. So imagine leaving everything you've ever owned behind. And even as a child, there are things you want to hold on to. We made our way packed to the car, packed inside with soldiers on either side. The car had been loaned to him by his boss who was Italian. And because of the war, the Civil War actually, foreigners were not being harassed the way Liberians were. And therefore, it was safer to be in the Italian embassy car. There was a curfew from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And you didn't dare venture out a minute past 6. As a woman, you might be raped. As a man, you would definitely be detained, questioned, maybe released. But the likelihood, if you didn't know someone, was grim. So, as the car took off, one thing we remembered vaguely, I remember seeing bodies all along the roads. Dead bodies. They had been shot, thrown to the side, as if they were animals. We continued through checkpoints. First checkpoint, get out. The car was checked, the trunk was checked. We were questioned. Back in through the second checkpoint, third checkpoint, a fourth checkpoint, and the fifth one. We made it through all 5 checkpoints. We got to the airport, and It was like the scene out of a Mad Max movie with Liberian soldiers racing back and forth in luxury cars on the runway. Luxury cars that had been confiscated, stolen from their owners just because they could do that with their guns. We got to the hangar, and then a soldier said, "Wait a minute, this woman can't go. She's one of the people we're looking for." Imagine what you feel as a child, a woman who's taken care of you all your life and may not make it. My father hustled us onto the plane, afraid of perhaps what was to come. We sat on that plane for what seemed like an eternity. And it wasn't the plane you're imagining. It was a 6-passenger plane, a twin-engine plane, piled in it. We didn't speak, my siblings and I. We were all afraid to say what the inevitable might be. So we stared at each other. We all understood what we were each thinking. After an eternity, a Liberian pilot was able to talk to the Liberian soldiers who were holding my mother hostage at the time. And they allowed her to get on that plane. She got on the plane, and my father taxied down the runway, holding onto the brakes and accelerating as fast as he could, and then letting go of the brakes before the plane rocketed into the sky. And we heard shots, one after the other. The plane jolted. It had been hit. My father flew above the treetops, close to the coast, to avoid any other shots hitting the plane. We made it to Sierra Leone. A land we didn't know. A strange place for us. The loss of freedom. Home, as we'd known it, was gone. We stayed in Sierra Leone month after month. July went by, August went by, September, October, waiting for our beloved country to return to what it had been, to what we had known, at least for there to be ceasefire. That wasn't likely. We had lost our home. We had lost everything. We realized it. We boarded a plane in December of 1990, and we arrived in New York City, in another country, promising a different kind of freedom. Thank you.